So I'm going to demonstrate the product as Patrick had mentioned, and just to introduce myself, my name's Mike Spence. I've been in the SolidWorks industry for the last 15 years and I've seen a lot of changes and growth in the products, and the SolidWorks Enterprise PDM tool is one of the places where we've seen growth as well as a huge benefit to the customers using the product. And during the next roughly 30 or 40 minutes, I'm going to share 5 key elements of SolidWorks Enterprise PDM that ultimately makes using SolidWorks even easier. Now, I'm curious, with the group that we have on the phone today, if you wouldn't mind, if you're a regular day in, day out SolidWorks user, would you click your raise your hand button on the GoToMeeting interface? I'm curious how many of you feel like you just use SolidWorks on a pretty regular basis, and how many are either casual users or non-users? Okay. So we've got about half the group raising their hands of your SolidWorks users. Thanks. It gives me an idea of our audience at least. So I'll spend the first few minutes introducing you to a user interface that's already familiar. Next, I'll show you how you can keep your data organized the way you like while still making it easy to access and change. And I'll show you how fast and easy it is to keep track of revisions and design variations, as Patrick mentioned. Classic methods are pretty tedious, while maintaining revision control. That's the key there. And I'll show you how to find and report on critical information. And finally, we'll discuss the various ways Enterprise PDM will help you share information across your organization. So let's dive into this a little bit. Let me begin as a project leader. That's my job at the beginning of this presentation. I need to initiate an engineering change. Then I need to step in as a designer, and as the designer I need to start the work that's on the ECO. I'll use Enterprise PDM through Microsoft Word and Windows Explorer to do it. So let's start into that. First of all, let me just go ahead and emphasize the fact that Enterprise PDM is built right into Windows Explorer. So if I go into one of my folders on Windows Explorer, and forgive me, I meant to show you logging in, so I'm going to log off really quick. The point being that just trying to open this folder on your hard drive, you have to have the right credentials to do so. And these credentials give you access depending on the rights you have. And Dave is a project manager. And so opening up this folder gives him access to files, and though I'm looking at my hard drive, it gives me access to files stored on a server securely that I can work through. Okay. Now, as Dave, I already have a document ready to go that I've started out, and this Word document is in Enterprise PDM. And I've started the engineering change, and I've put a little bit of information in here. And one great thing is we have a plugin for not only obviously Windows Explorer, but also Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and Excel, common tools that you use every day to get data in and out. And we have a tab here for Enterprise PDM. Now, I've already have this document checked out, and that concept means that I'm the owner, I'm the one who gets to work on it. Others might be able to see it, but it's my responsibility to make changes. Now, I can even find where this document is with a click of a button. We'll get more into the actual organization of the folders in my vault here in a little bit, but I don't have to know where it is. I can just click a button, and it will find that document wherever it is inside of my Enterprise PDM system. I've got another document in here, but with any document, not only do you get to see the files, but you can see information about the files. There's my name, Dave, currently as the project manager, and I can see that I'm working on it. I can preview those documents to see what's on them, and we'll get more into this as we go along. But more importantly right now, what I want to do is I want to attach on the drawing that's associated. So I'm going to pop up just another Explorer window, get back into the vault, and instead of having to browse through file folders, I'm just going to use the search. I know this is a drawing with the number 227 in the drawing. and the search came up with several results, but there's the drawing right there. There's the SOLIDWORKS drawing, and I can verify by even looking at a quick preview. It uses SOLIDWORKS eDrawings for the preview for SOLIDWORKS drawings. That's the one I want. And so it can be as simple as a copy and paste to make a connection between these documents. So I'm going to copy that drawing and come back to this engineering change document and paste it onto the document. And you can kind of see graphically it's creating this relationship between these. And as we work through the process, what you'll find is that when I finalize this ECO later on, it will be able to finalize the drawings as well. And what I mean by that, we'll see that as I go. So let's focus on working on this Word document. I can also make modifications to data on the document either through Word or through a form that lets me fill information out. So some of these details, like the ECO number and the description and my username and everything, are coming in through this form, or this, what we call the data card. And I'm going to add on some additional comments. We need to check for compatibility of other designs that use this, and Sprocket is the main thing I'm going to worry about here. The ECO is intended to lighten up a sprocket on the design, and I'll show you that in the design here in just a minute. But what I want to emphasize is changing things on that form or that card can help fill out information on the Word document, as well as I'm even linking in the drawing name onto the Word document as well. So to pass this along to engineering, that was my job as Dave, as the project manager here. I'm going to go ahead and check this in, and what that does is removes my name from the document, as well as takes the changes that I've made here on my computer and sends them off to the server so other people can see them. And this is ready for engineering. So now that's visible to them, but maybe they don't know it's there. You know, who browses through folders to look for new information, right? So I'm going to make use of the workflows in Enterprise PDM to send an email notification and to change the rights of the document. Maybe my engineers can't even see this right now. So I'm going to submit it off to engineering. Please perform work. And I'm going to notify user Mike, and there he is. I had quite a few other users in there, so I can just filter down and find him. And maybe I'll tell him this needs to be done today. And there you go. I don't have to worry about getting a document control clerk to take a printed copy in a folder or anything like that. The document has gone along and is in the system and available for my next work. Now, I'm also user Mike right now, so let me log in as a different user for a moment. So I'm shifting over as a designer. Now I have different rights in the system as user Mike. I can't necessarily create an engineering change. You may like that for some of your engineers, but it may not be appropriate for all. And I may not be able to see some document types depending on where it is. So my rights are going to be different than Dave's. Now again, I might come into my Vault and just start looking for files that I need to work on, or I may get email notifications, and here's my email notification coming up from Dave's work that he just completed. And it says I need to perform the work today, and it's telling me that a new document was created, and I can see it's an engineering change document. I can preview that, I can open it up, or I can just hyperlink to wherever it is. Maybe I don't know where it is, but I can see this is part of Project 22. Well, I don't know exactly what that is. So let's just link right over and find that document. So there we go. It took me right to the document. I can read it and preview it right from here, as we saw from Dave's experience. I can start reading up on the information. I can read the information from that same form or that data card that we talked about as well. So I can see what Dave has posted there. And I can go to the Contains tab and see that this relates to this particular drawing. And that drawing is made up of an assembly and a bunch of other parts. But this is a subassembly for the left-hand rear swing arm. Well, let's see what that is. Right from here, I can go ahead and just link right to wherever that is in the vault and start reviewing that drawing. Okay. So I can see that this is part of this rear design. I've got to change the sprocket and lighten it up. So that's part of my design work, and add on a chain guard. So now very easily I've been able to figure out what I need to do. Dave has been able to pass the right information along to me, and it's all been done in an interface that I already know through Microsoft Word as well as through Windows Explorer. So with Enterprise PDM, you really have a fast and familiar way, or user interface, excuse me, with add-ins to popular tools. Everyone in your organization already knows Windows Explorer, so the training load or the burden on learning a new application is minimal. Now let's look a little deeper into the way files are organized and managed by Enterprise PDM. We just started a new development project, but we need to organize based on our company rules. I've got some files in there that may not be organized exactly right. Maybe I need to create a new project. Just pay attention to the steps I take compared to what you might do today to organize the same kind of information and keep it accurate and straight. So let's hop back into Windows Explorer, and I'm going to start just at the root of the vault for a moment here. You can really organize Enterprise PDM however you'd like in a folder structure. So I have several different areas of my vault. I have some technical publications organized by year. We can control and view many different file formats, including a variety of 3D formats like 3D via Composer, SolidWorks obviously, Office documents. You know, I can see a massive list of document types here in this other folder. I've got everything from PDFs to Excel spreadsheets to images of documents, as well as DWG data. And I can preview and control all of that design work. So it makes it very easy to get in and control your data. I also have a library of common parts that are shared across my organization. I might need folders that are maybe hidden from me right now for other divisions, or for maybe if I'm a defense contractor for ITAR sensitive data, or if I'm a medical device manufacturer, information that's only appropriate for one group or another. It might be hidden from me right now. Now in my designs area, this is my general design area, I have a variety of folders, and in each one of those folders, we can look at this mountain scooter project that we're looking at right now, I always want the same folder organization. And so I can even make that easier by, for example, as user Mike, maybe I need to initiate another new project. Well, I can have quick templates that start off folders and files based on rules. So I'm going to start out a project template called a standard project, and let's make this a filling machine. You can make it easy for the user to choose exactly what they need. I'm going to enter some other information for a customer name. And what that will do is grab the next project number, initiate that folder, adding in descriptive information, as well as starting out a project checklist for me and adding some other folders that are all ready for my data to be created. So it can be a great way to help keep your system organized. Now, in project 22 that I'm currently working on, let's take a look at some of the SolidWorks design data. Here's the top assembly of my mountain scooter. This is a pretty cool system. You can drive these things over all kinds of crazy terrain. And we've got a few different designs. We've got this smaller design we're working on right now for a lighter, less expensive version. And we've got some big, heavy models that are really powerful that can really tow you around the mountain. And so that's one of the design considerations I need to make. In the list of components that I have for the design, most of them I've done a good job keeping track of part numbers. I've got descriptive information available as well, so even if I've got things named by part numbers, I don't struggle remembering, oh, what is this 1,099 part? Well, I can see it's the thrust washer. Or I can preview it and read the data card. That makes that very easy, helps keep it organized. Plus, down in the bottom, I have a SolidWorks subassembly for this shock that's used on the main design. Okay, there's this shock, and I don't know if you saw that in the top assembly. But right now I haven't named it with a part number. Plus, this is a purchased part. It doesn't necessarily need to be right here in this project. Well, right away, to keep this organized, I can click on the tab here to tell me exactly where it's used. Now, this 239 subassembly is the subassembly I'm currently working on, but it's also used in several others. Now, if this was you, and you were deciding you wanted to rename this subassembly that's used by many assemblies, what kind of a process would you go through? Well, in Enterprise PDM, it's literally as easy as rename. Everything's updated automatically for me. All those references are now still referencing this same assembly. And let's take it a step further. I have a filter in here. I've got, in fact, you'll see on my data card, I've got some of these files marked as purchased, and I'm keeping track of a vendor and a vendor part number for those as well. So I'm going to filter my list of files in this folder by the type of document. So I've got some built parts, a catalog part, and some purchased parts. Well, these purchased parts don't belong in this folder, really. They belong in a shared folder where all my common parts should be. So what would the process be for you if you had to move all these files and they're used by many assemblies? Well, I'm just going to simply do a cut, and let's find my library folder, and I'm going to go into my design library for parts and simply paste them in. Okay? Now, what might that have done if you just did that in regular old Windows Explorer? You might cause a disaster. But look at this subassembly for the shock. It's still used by all the same assemblies, so that's great. And let's take a look from here. Let's get back to that same. Oh, of course I moved it. So let me go up to the top assembly here. And with the contains list, just verify. Bear with me for just a moment. There's that same shock. But let's get this opened in SOLIDWORKS just to make sure it's doing exactly what I'm describing. Now, with Enterprise PDM for SOLIDWORKS as well, it's prompting me as I open a file if I would want to check it out. That means it's going to make me the owner of the file, mark my name in it so everyone can see that I'm working on it, and I'm going to do exactly that for the top assembly. But what we want to verify is that the shock here is still able to be found, even with the new name, new location, and sure enough, I don't get any messages about missing files. And if we look at the manager tree here, there's my new part number for that shock assembly, as well as it's showing me here that it's in Enterprise PDM as well. So it just makes for a great way to be able to keep track of your data and keep it organized the way you like it organized. Again, I want to just ask you the question, how long would that same operation take you using your current set of tools? You just mull that over a little bit. But by keeping your data organized, you can guarantee the accuracy of your designs. And that really gives you the confidence to move forward with future iterations. You can also be confident that the right information will get to the right users in the process. All right, so let's talk about design variations and revisions, because this really gets into where this can help make SOLIDWORKS easier for other users. Think of a GPS. It not only tells you where you are, but it can tell you where you've been, where you're going, and tell you information about things along the way. We'll kind of get the same idea here. So as the designer Mike, I need to make the changes requested in the ECO, which is to lighten this sprocket. I also need to add a few more parts to the assembly as well. Now, again, imagine the steps you would go through today to make these design variations and find the required components that you need to do this. Just keep that in mind. So let's jump back to SOLIDWORKS. And I need to start working on this subassembly. Now, I just realized this actually informs me quite well Even though this was not planned, this is a good example of good information from SOLIDWORKS. Now, if you're a SOLIDWORKS user, I'm sure you've run into the case where you've opened a file and some of the references are showing up in a different location. And SOLIDWORKS searches in different places to find the files, no matter what system is being used. But this flags me right away that some of these components are not in my vault. So it helps me realize in my setup for this, I haven't made any changes yet, so this is safe to do. In my setup, I had left some stray models sitting around, so I'm going to get rid of these. And these are not in my vault. So a great visual cue to also help me avoid common problems, and that's changing a file that's in a folder location that you didn't expect. So let's just verify this. And now when I go to that design, that yellow highlighting is gone. And that yellow highlighting was a warning for me telling me, hey, these are not vaulted files. Is this really what you want to be working on? So though that was not planned, another great example of where it helps you out. Make sure you make the right decisions. Okay, so I want to work on this subassembly right here. Now, I can put my name on any of these files at any point. So I'm going to go ahead and check out this subassembly. And another good reminder, above the subassembly, it's showing me that there's a drawing available of the same assembly. Well, I better check that out as well, because I'll probably have to update that while I'm at it. So let's get those checked out and open up that subassembly. And checkout can be done right from a component on the screen as well. I can simply right-click on it and check it out. Again, that's putting my name on those files, and we can kind of verify that if I browse to that in my Explore folder for the vault. You can see that part has my name on it, and every user that can see these files is going to be able to see this, and they can even see exactly who's working on that. Great way to be able to sort by the files that I currently have checked out, and there I know exactly what I'm working on. All right, but let's focus on the work that I have to do. I need to open this file up, and many of you are SOLIDWORKS users, so I'm just going to do this kind of cookie cutter quick. They're my round holes that I want to try out first. This is my first design iteration. So I'm going to go ahead and check in this design concept and say that I added round holes. But I'm not sure that that's going to be the best idea. So I've got another variation in mind, and as I do this, I want to emphasize this small number here, this version number. It's keeping track of these copies of the file on the server for me while I go. So let me try another design variation. I'm going to turn those off. And I had the idea to make some slotted holes. This might not be as strong, but it looks like it'll probably be lighter. So I'm going to also check in a copy there and say that I added slotted holes. Now if I can spell correctly. There we go. So this is checking in a third design variation. So right from here, I can go back. I don't have to find those files or anything. I can flip-flop back and forth between these different design variations and see them right on the fly. And behind the scenes, it's actually getting different files for me from my server. Now, I'm going to leave it in this old, and that's why I've got this little warning here, in this old design variation, because what I might want to do is sit down with review board or with a couple other of my designer engineers and have a little bit of a design review. This makes this fantastic. I can sit down and say, here are my ideas, guys. So, in fact, let's use SOLIDWORKS tools to help me out. I've linked to the weight of this part. Like I say, here was the original idea. It was 0.8 pounds. Well, I also made a design variation with round holes. Kind of like this. It's still pretty strong, cheap to cut out, and it knocked down some weight significantly, 0.65. But if we go with my latest variation, that's down to just over half a pound, and we've saved some significant weight. And this looks like for this design variation, it's for this smaller mountain scooter, this should be fine for strength. So a great way to be able to use those design versions. Now I still haven't approved or released any revision or anything, but being able to configure things that have never been configured. Even imagine being able to see an older version component or revision component on a design if a customer asks for a spare part, to see if some old stock parts will still work with the design that they have, or whether a newer design that you have in stock might work for them on their old design. You can configure your designs on the fly that way using the versions you create. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Let's pull open the drawing as well to make sure that's up to date. Okay, and there's my light and sprocket. That's great. I need to add a chain guard. That was one of the other requirements on my engineering change document. So where's my chain guard? This is an existing part, and I've got to bolt that on with some common components. So how many times have you done this if you're a SolidWorks user? You go to insert components into an assembly, and you look at a list like this and think, oh man, how am I going to find the part that I need? Or worse yet, through your whole server network of files, how are you going to find it? Well, SolidWorks Enterprise PDM makes this easy. I know this is a guard, if I can spell it right. And I'm using the description, not even the file name. I can use any text, and I'll emphasize that in a moment. Now I have a few different guards. Now obviously this fan guard is probably not it. And I've got my engineering change that I just created to lighten the sprocket and add a chain guard. You can even see a preview. Well, the fan guard is not it. It's this part right here, my sprocket guard. So it found that. I don't know where it is in the vault, and that's fine. That's the one I want to use. So from there, it's business as usual in SolidWorks, right? Using SolidWorks tools to help easily place this into the assembly. We'll snap that in. And I like some of the new tools in SolidWorks 2014 as well, with some of the quick pop-up mates. Now I've got to find the bolt. Just save what I have here real quick and browse out to a bolt. And again, I don't know where this is, so I'm going to use my search tool again. And in the description, I know it's a bolt. So let's search and see what we can find. I want to find everything. Okay, so I've got a few, but I know I need an M5 bolt, and that's one of my configuration names. So I'm going to filter this down by M5. And there we go. I found my part that has an M5 configuration. And in fact, I can see all of my configurations here. Okay, so let's place that in. And I'm using the part configurator to set the size, and this is the M5 size that I want. So let's just pop that in, place it in the assembly. Okay, and I'll add another copy using copy with mates to get this placed right over here. All right, so SolidWorks Enterprise PDM has made it easy for me to find the parts that I needed to add to the assembly. So let's flip back to the drawing. I should have added a couple items to our bill of materials, and that's great. As the designer, I'm kind of verifying that I've got the sprocket guard and the 2 new hex bolts. Might need to throw in just a couple new balloons here. So there we go for our bolt and our guard. Oop. Shouldn't cancel the operation though. Should confirm it. There we go. And so the drawing looks great. And so I'm ready to finalize this and submit it in for approval. So again, right from here, I can check in my design and say that I've added lighter sprocket and chain guard per ECO. Those are my notes so that everyone can see what I've done as well. And I can use the workflow right from within SolidWorks to submit this along for approval. I have a few other options depending on the workflow that you use in your business. You might have several options for your users. And I'm going to submit in the drawing, the assembly, and even that chain guard that I was just working on. And for my fantastic comments, say done, and just like you wanted. And Dave sent this to me, so I'm going to send it back to Dave so he gets another email notification that I'm finished. Okay. Now if I take a look at that file now in Windows Explorer, that has moved that along the workflow. And let's just take a visual look at that for a moment. I can see here that it's in initial review. So I might have some different rights now. For example, my ability to delete and rename this file, since it's gone beyond just design, is now restricted. But let's see where that is. So kind of like our GPS idea, here's our visual guide to where it is in the workflow. Now this workflow for my typical design document starts at the top here at design, and I've submitted that for approval. So now in red, it tells me exactly where it is. I'm in this initial review state. Now that either needs to get rejected to me, released, or they might decide it requires many approvals and it actually switches out to another workflow. So this gives me a roadmap of exactly where I am and where I've been. So I'm finished as user Mike with controlling my design variations. So you can see through that process that Enterprise PDM gives you complete control over the change process and automatically captures your design history. So it really gives you good change control. Now we need to shift gears again. I need to jump back in as the project manager. So where do you go on the topic of finding information? Where do you go? Think of all the places you go during the day to find information out about your designs. Different applications, different folder locations, you name it. Well, as the project manager, I need to check the status of our ECO. I also need to study the impact of the change to the sprocket. How many assemblies are affected? And if I make a new revision versus making a new part number, which choice should I make? How often do you have to make that choice? And what helps you make that choice? I also need to review the proposed design's bill of materials compared to what the bill of materials was to look for any long lead parts or other critical items. So again, just think of where you would go today to find all of this information as I go through this process here. So let's log out as Mike, because he's finished, and log back into the vault as Dave, the project manager. Now again, he's getting an email notification right away, and this is coming from user Mike. We just saw Mike submit this. The files went from design to initial review. There's who did it. And again, hyperlinks and notes that Mike put into the comment. So let's just go ahead and jump right to the drawing in my Enterprise PDM vault. Okay, and again, this is great. I don't have to filter through and find where that drawing is. It takes me right to it. I don't have to know the structure of my vault to be able to do that. So right away, let's start previewing this to make sure that Mike finished everything he was supposed to. Okay, so we've got the lighter sprocket. That looks great. And we've got the chain guard on there with the bolts. Now, it looks like the bill of materials has been updated, but I didn't do the work. So what might I do right now to make sure it's been done? Let's see, I've got a couple new balloons for those new components. So it looks like he's finished the work. I can also look at the history to see exactly who did everything. So it was Mike that actually added the lighter sprocket and the chain guard and then submitted it on to review. So it looks like it didn't take him much effort. Only one check-in to do that. Well, let's take a look at that sprocket as well. Let's focus on that for a minute. There's that 1094 sprocket. And so I'm going to browse to that part, wherever that is. And I can take a look and see what that looks like now. So there's his lighter variation. Now, I start getting concerned here because I think, you know what? On our heavier models, this may not be strong enough. Let's see what he did in the process. I'm going to go back through, and even from here, from Windows Explorer, I can see the original design. And I can see his version where he said he added round holes. Okay, that's not too bad. I don't necessarily like that this is so close down here. For manufacturing, that might be troublesome. So let's just take a look at the latest version and look at the impact of this change. So I'm going to simply select where is this used. And this shows me right away it is used on some of our larger size models. In fact, this one right here is our biggest, heaviest duty size 750. Let's browse to that for a moment and just take a look at the model. And I'm going to pull it up in full e-drawings, just hitting my View File button in Enterprise PDM. And this is a much larger, heavier duty system, and we had used the older design, we had used the older full sprocket because of strength requirements back here. And so I'm a little concerned. I don't believe that this will be a good solution for this design, for the larger system. So I don't want user Mike to just simply approve a revision for that. What I want to do is decide on a new part number. So in the process here, what I'm going to do is go back through and let's find that existing change. Well, let's do this from the assembly. I'm just going to open this, the current design assembly. Here's my current design assembly, and there's the drawing, right? Let's just open up that drawing, and I'm going to work from here. As Dave, I also have rights to make some design changes. I know SolidWorks as well. I've been through some training. And so I'm going to take care of the new part number instead of passing that off to Mike. So I need to make sure I check out the drawing and the assembly because they're going to use the new part number. I don't need to check out the sprocket because I'm not going to actually change it. I'm going to turn it into a new part. All right. So there's the chain sprocket that Mike was working on. And so it can be as simple as this. In SolidWorks Enterprise PDM, using a Save As. Notice what Enterprise PDM does for me automatically with SolidWorks. It's grabbed the next part number in my system and assigned the part number for me automatically, or certainly I could rename this with a part number if I'm getting those from another system. But Enterprise PDM can do that for you. And I'm going to modify the description that this is the light version. Now also with the rules in SolidWorks, a Save As re-references the existing files that are open with this new version. So I've got this new part number 760. Since this is a new file that's being created, it's showing me the form for all the data I can fill in. And it's being created by me, Dave, Project Manager, today. And I'm going to assign this as a built part. We're going to use the same materials and everything. So everything else is great for this. But maybe I put in some comments here. Lighter version for lightweight designs. So we've got some history on that as well. Excellent. So I've got the new part number in my vault. We can kind of verify from the drawing here that we've got, yeah, there we go, our part number 760. This is now the light chain sprocket on the drawing. So that looks great. So let's get these checked in to the vault. And we added a new part number for light sprocket. It's fun to hear somebody talk while they type, isn't it? Now this is what I want to go ahead and approve and release. So let me just use Enterprise PDM again and go ahead and, oh, before I release this, let me show you one more thing that'll actually tie into our next topic. Let me jump into the drawing in the vault again. And as Dave, the project manager, before I worry about releasing this, I can close SolidWorks now. Before I worry about releasing this, I want to compare my bill of materials because, again, user Mike might have done some other things in the changes. Now, looking at a bill of materials, whether it's the drawing bill of materials or whether it's my latest bill of materials here, it's hard to know what has changed unless you can compare them. And that's where the Enterprise PDM compare tool in bills of materials can be fantastic. I can simply say, well, let's compare this to the very first version of this assembly that we put together. And I can see that I have 3 new parts. I've got a new sprocket guard, I've got some new bolts, and I've got a new sprocket, my new 760 part number for the light sprocket. And we've removed the old part number 94 chain sprocket. So that's a great way to be able to make sure that I know exactly what has changed in this design, not only what I can see on the screen, but the part numbers as well. Okay? So ePDM helps you find all of the right information in one consolidated location, and ultimately this helps you make better design decisions. as you've seen with Dave. All right, let's hit our final topic about sharing data. Now, sharing your design files with the right people at the right time is what Enterprise PDM does best. The workflow process, and this is a graphical representation of that same workflow process, not only emails users and subscribers of important milestones and actions needed, but it also controls the right access at the right time. And I've briefly mentioned that, where user Mike, once something was in review, he could no longer delete it, which is probably a good idea. And here you see a kind of a graphical representation of designers might create things and submit them for approval, but then it requires a different user to take different actions, as we've done with Dave here, in fact. In our example, only the change approvers like Dave can release ECOs and the drawings. And that's why I wanted to pause there. I don't want to release the drawing. I'm actually going to go ahead and release the ECO and its related documents. Also, the workflows can automate data creation for you. They can automate creation of PDFs of your drawings for other users, XML bills of materials, or even Excel bill of materials. And I'll show you some of that. So let's dive into that process. Let's see, I think I already have a folder open here. Yeah, there was our bill of materials. Now, first, I want to generate a bill of materials out as a spreadsheet. And I don't need the comparison. I want the latest variation. And so I can go ahead and open up right into Excel. There it is. A bill of materials right from that Enterprise PDM bill of materials. So since this is dumped right out into Excel, this is a fairly neutral form that you can use for lots of other business processes and share this data downstream. Okay, that's one option we have. Now, also, I want to find where this drawing is used, and it's used by that ECO 1052. Now, really, my intent here, as I mentioned, was to finalize this ECO. Okay, so I can kind of take a look at the history so far and how it's been along. I've done everything as user Dave. I can even take a look graphically at that again, just like we saw on the drawings. I have a little bit different workflow process for ECOs. I create them, they're pending. We get a review and approve the ECO, and once it's approved, it's released for engineering work. Now, before that, we could have put it on hold or canceled it if that was appropriate. But once the engineering work is done, we're going to release everything and consider that ECO implemented. Now, your process might be exactly the same, or it might be slightly different. And that's the great thing. It can be configured and tailored to your exact specifications. So I'm going to take my engineering change document, and right through Windows Explorer, you can also run things through their workflow. You don't have to just do it in Word or SolidWorks. So I'm going to go ahead and release this. I can do that since I'm a project manager in this case. And it's also releasing the assembly and the drawing while I'm at it. And that's perfect. In my comment, we'll say engineering finalized changes for ECO. Now that final operation can again email users that things are complete. Let's take a look at that drawing again for a moment. I'm going to browse right back to that. I'm hopping around a little bit between files, but it sure makes it easy. I can see in my Explorer window that these are released. If I logged in as a read-only released user, these would probably be the only two files I could see in this folder. Not only that, but it's filled out that released information on the form for me, as well as automated some data into the drawing border. So I don't have to have people doing data entry to put in who created the file, who approved it, what revision it's currently at this point in the stage. Okay? And just as a final note here, if I go into my PDFs folder, a PDF has also been created by a task that generated this once the document was released. And maybe this is a folder that I share with other people in my business who can search and look for just released PDFs. So it's a great way to be able to make sure you get the right information out to the right people at the right time. Now, one of the latest additions to Enterprise PDM is a mobile-enabled web interface. So combine this, imagine on your iPad or your Android phone or your iPhone, being able to go on the web and log into Enterprise PDM, get email notifications, approve files. With Apple and Android devices, you also have e-drawings available, so you can download those files and view them and preview them. So you have an amazing end-to-end solution for getting information to users wherever they are and the way they like it, right? So Enterprise PDM ultimately increases your throughput by getting the right information to the right people, and again, the way they need it. So to summarize today, through a fast and familiar user interface, simple design organization, revision control, reporting and sharing data, SOLIDWORKS Enterprise PDM will help you reduce wasted time, wasted money, bad information, and it'll also improve the quality of your designs. Ultimately, SOLIDWORKS Enterprise PDM will simply make SOLIDWORKS easier for your users.